Good evening, people. Welcome to the full view. 4 of us today, but you get the gist. You get the gist. Happy Sunday.
We'll soon
Good
be five.
evening. Yes, soon be 5. Cam is on his way very, very shortly. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Myself, Owen, Cam, Kenny, and Marcel will be with you guys for the next hour. We have a lot to talk about, guys. Obviously, when we do the full view, we love it to be positive. We love it when we can talk about how good things are going. We can look back on the weekend and say, wow, did you see this player? This player really impressed me. There were goals flying in and this, that, and the other. But the reality is, it isn't that right now. It isn't that. Obviously, just before we went live as well, I say obviously, if you didn't know, just before we went live, reports are saying that Lisandro Martinez will be out for, we know he's going to be out for 2 to 3 months, but also what we do know, Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mirror is saying that Martinez is set to have a second operation on the same metatarsal that he suffered last season after suffering a setback from his injury return. Lisandro Martinez took painkillers to play in the games against Brighton and Bayern Munich. After further tests on Thursday, it revealed that his foot fracture has not healed correctly. So there hasn't been anything on whether that means the 2 to 3 months that we got told the other day, now that means it's longer, or whether that's inclusive of. I would guess it's inclusive of, but who knows at this stage. So another bit of bad news to add into what we were going to be talking about, which were reports today as well, claiming that, mentality issues are present. Eric Ten Hag is worried about the mentality of the squad, especially when they're faced with adversity. How many times have we been speaking about that emotionally in games, them not coping correctly? And then also in terms of actually Marcus Rashford, there was a little bit more on that, which was basically saying that he's fragile at the moment. What's his mood like? There's an acceptance that his body language is off. All of the things that us fans have been saying since the start of the season when it comes to Marcus. So take your pick out of that. There's clearly a lot to get your teeth into. Owen, am I missing any key quotes that you'd like to just back up with, or is that pretty much a good overview?
Pretty much it. The one from the Mirror about Rashford said that sources close to the dressing room admitted there's concern about Rashford's body language during games, with the player cutting an increasingly despondent figure, was the phrase that they used. But then, to be honest, you can see that watching him on the pitch, to be honest. And then, as you mentioned, with the Martinez one, is that he's set to undergo surgery tomorrow on that metatarsal injury. As far as the timeline, we won't get one. Like, for all of the injuries that we've got, we're still waiting on timelines for people like, Kobe Mainu or Terrell Malacia or Luke Shaw. It's a rough approximation, isn't it? So yes, you're all right with all of that, Flex.
Good. Because we've got a lot to talk about. Where do we start? Marcel, let's start with you. I know you are usually calm about things. I know you're very positive about things. But where do you stand with, not only those reports that you just heard read out with the current state of play, supposedly, according to some reports, but, the performance yesterday, where we're at, confidence is low, questions are being asked, players being dug out. Where are you at with it, bro?
I'm just taking my time. You know me. Usually it's 10 games. You have to give the manager and the players 10 games to try and figure out what it is that they're trying to do with this team and the direction that we're going in. For me, I'm not gonna rush things and be too worried about the results at the moment. We've seen through the first few games of the season massive problems with midfield, but then injuries started pouring out of nowhere. Just speaking on the Martinez situation, we don't know how long he's going to be back for. I've been saying for the longest now, Flex, about Rashford and the defensive transitions and him being, he's been shocking in that element. And now we're seeing other elements of his game in the forward line as well. Regarding last game, 1-0 against Palace, new changes come in, the starters come in, and the level drops. It's a damning, stat to look at and a thing to actually have to accept. But, Rashford was well below par. And as time goes on, we're going to have to start asking questions on that. And I think for this season, for sure, I'm definitely going to have to be on Rashford watch. Is he good enough to be the talisman maverick player that we need as the number 10 for our club? As the question's still there with it. I don't think Bruno played massively poorly, though. He scored an important goal. He was rubbish against Burnley, but he scored the goal. So he deserves to play and start in this game. He didn't particularly go massively hiding, but he wasn't effective enough, and he didn't produce a captain's performance. That's for sure. But I'm giving it time, Flex. You know, the goalkeeper's there. That we've seen against the top sides like Arsenal that we can break down, you know, their high pressing actions and we can force them into mid blocks. You know, against the lesser sides, we're finding it difficult to break down the low blocks. But you know, we've got a striker there in Hoyland who's young and is promising. The right wing situation, Palestri, unfortunately for me, is not going to be good enough. I've been saying Diallo, you know, Flex personally, I believe in Ahmad. So, you know, it's Ahmad Diallo is going to come in and hopefully sort that out, or Anthony. But we've got a lot of problems here. That midfield combination, we haven't even seen them for 4 or 5 games yet this season. You know, for me, you know, those that are saying Ten Hag out, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous if anyone wants to get Ten Hag out. It's the personnel that are not able to perform. He's given Rashford these 1v1, 2v1 opportunities on the left side of the pitch against his winger, and he can't beat him. That's not Ten Hag's fault. There is elements of him not taking Rashford off and maybe starting Garnacho. I can respect that, those that say that, and I would agree with him. I'd agree with those as well, because, you know, Rashford maybe does need to get dropped. He does seem like somebody that is invincible to that at the moment. But you've got to give Rashford the merit on last season's work. He was the number one person that we went to for the goals, you know. So, and then even for Ten Hag, there should be no Ten Hag outers, because the merit from last season, he stabilized and he's been able to bring results. Now he wants to work on performances, evolving the squad to the way that we play. So I'm calm, I'm cool, I'm collected, Flex, and I'm not going to be worried until at least 15 games. I believe we will stabilize this and turn this around.
Kenny,
Whoa! me and Kenny's eyes literally both went the same time. We both went like that. 15.
Talk to us, Kenny.
Oh, where do I start? Look, before I do start, Ten Hag has a lot of credit in my bank. A lot of credit, believe me. I have a lot of time for the guy. But what I can't get behind, as a football fan and a Man United fan, we have got a goal difference of -4, -5. We've lost 5 games. The games that we think about, Wolves, think about Nottingham Forest. We could be in the bottom 3 now. That's the realism of it. Brighton turned us over away. Arsenal have turned. 4 of the top 8 have beat us already.
Brighton was at home, Kenny. Brighton turned us over at home.
Brighton was at home.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is 4 of the top 8 have beat us already. Now, last year we had this thing about home, well, away from home. Now we're getting it at home. So, yes, Ten Hag has definitely got my support. I think he's done a fantastic job so far. But there's a big caveat to that, and a massive one. Palestri on the right-hand side, I'm a bit like Marcel. He isn't good enough, right? He's got lots of energy, and he's like Garnacho. For me, they're impact players. But yesterday, to leave Marcus Rashford on that field for more than the first half was bang out of order, because everybody in the ground could see he was. I'm not saying, of course, the lad's interested, but there is issues. And whatever them issues are, then that's down to the coach. That's down to the coach. If you keep playing him and he keeps playing badly, as a coach, don't expect the fans to continue supporting you, because they won't. Because there was a lot of fans in that ground yesterday. When that board went up and he didn't take he took the young Palestri off, I thought, wow. And then,
was you surprised though, Kenny, with that? Because I wasn't surprised. I thought the next sub he's gonna bring on Garnacho, but I knew it wouldn't be for Rashford.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
How big of a problem is that Ten Hag? We just know that he's like won't just rip him off or not even start him.
You know, I'm like yourselves. I watch all the fan vlogs from all the channels or whatever, and the consistent message coming out from yesterday's game was we won 3-0 with young Hannibal in the team. 10 minutes to go yesterday, brought Donny van der Beek on. Still sat on the bench. And I'm not saying he should have started over Mount or whatever. But what's that lad got to do now to get a chance? Because with 10 minutes to go, you want a goal. You want energy in the midfield. They bring Donny van der Beek on. Wow. We've been trying to get rid of him. So we're sending the wrong messages out to some of the players. And that will... And I hate to say this because I'm fully supportive of the Sancho situation. But if I'd have been in that ground yesterday, there were 3 players we needed on that pitch, right? And that was Eriksen, Martial and Sancho. And the reason being is they can play football, right? They can play with the back to goal and they can play on the half turn and they can put a ball through. We're not seeing none of that. We are not seeing none of that. We're seeing the highest player with the most possession is Varane. Varane goes to the right to Dalot. Dalot then goes to Palestra. That is so predictable. You're at the ground yourself. Have you ever seen a bigger, taller thicker set of players than Crystal Palace? They were big lads.
Yeah.
They were big
and they just
lads.
said, "Listen, you're not going to play. You're not going to play through us."
And
forced us out wide, and we had no ideas.
No ideas. And the balls are coming over, and you've one player in the box, and you've got 4 lads there who are about 6'3" and 6'4". You ain't going to beat them like that. The players that we needed on that pitch is today. At half time, he should have shown the metal. He said, right, Ericsson, you're in at number 10. Marcel, you're there on the left, right, or whatever. Rashford, get off. And that's what he should have done. And I think even with the loss, I think he'd have gained more respect from the fans. The sheer fact that as fans, we could see it. You were never going to play through them because nobody wanted. The transition from defence was non-existent. It was go right, go left, try and throw a ball in. Nothing. We couldn't play through them. There were no little triangles in and around the box. Ericsson, Martial would have given you them triangles. And somebody may be saying upstairs and saying, we played £70 million for a player here. And all right, it might be sat at home and watching FIFA at 3:00 in the morning. But Roy Keane used to go to Manchester on a Friday night and Palace or whatever in the nightclub till 3:00 in the morning, coming half drunk, but they still played. Because
they played well.
We had a job to do.
That's the problem. They played well.
Yeah, they played well.
And they had a job to do. I mean, history shows us there's always been issues with players. Lee Sharp, and it goes on, right? But they were on the pitch and they performed on the pitch.
Yeah.
So somebody somewhere may be asking that question about Sancho. Hang on a minute. Why have we paid all this money for this lad? We're -4 in the goal difference, and we're 10th in the league. He's got to be careful. And I'm not supporting Sancho. I'm not, right? And I'm all for 10 out. But there's got to be he's going to fall on his own sword. He will fall on his own sword. That's.
Aminor says Liverpool last night. Liverpool had 9 men, had more desire than our 11 yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you looked at Liverpool at 10 men, obviously scored, and you just felt like Spurs were always still in trouble when they had 10, and when they went to 9, they were more difficult to beat. Jurgen Klopp, instant tactics. I tell you what, I'll go to a back 5, have 3 midfielders. We'll see it out, and obviously Matip does that, but.
And they were robbed. Spurs had 12 men, which is even more.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. So it just shows you what systems and tactics and players who are at it are capable. Could you imagine? Let alone 11 against 11.
Oh, Flex, it'd be 10-0. It'd be 10-0.
No.
We wouldn't Flex. It'd be 10-0. It would be a record defeat for Manchester
Not
United.
even at 9 players. I mean, at 10 men.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? I was away to one of the big 6, 10 men. Could you imagine? And then go down to 9. Oh my God. Jesus. Anyway, this is interesting because Owen spoke about this quite a lot and brought this up on quite a few shows, and I've definitely agreed with him. David G says, we're not actually playing any worse than last season. It's just that teams have figured us out. We had no patterns last season, and our goal was getting peppered, but teams didn't finish. Now they are. But Owen's sort of thing was saying that, like, are we any worse than before? You were saying, what was it you said? You said that...
my point previously was that if you look at how we've played or how we haven't really played since sort of, again, that Barca game, when we knocked Barca out the Europa League, since then, we hadn't actually played well for now going on like 7 months. We haven't. And towards the end of last season, we were sort of, just sort of getting through games and beating teams we should beat and losing to teams away from home that were half decent. And kind of that's what it's been this season so far. But realistically, yesterday was the first time that I really saw and I thought, this isn't good. Like in terms of, I felt like Ten Hag was shoehorning players into the team yesterday, particularly with Rashford and maybe to an extent Bruno Fernandes as well. In terms of this is actually negatively impacting how the team or how Ten Hag wants his team to play. And I thought in the first half with Rashford, I thought, oh, and you've got a bit of an agenda here because every time Rashford touched the ball, did something, I thought, I was throwing my hands up or getting annoyed. But then I watched it back today and I saw the clips online. There's a really good clip that's been floating around on social media of someone behind the goal in the first half. And the endeavour by the United side to get the ball out to Rashford, to make something happen. And
Yeah.
I'm not even exaggerating. Every single time he either passes it to their player, a couple of times he's running down the blindest of blind alleys into two defenders. And I mean, there were reports going around that during the game, the United staff were kind of putting their hands up about going like, what are you doing? And after the game, Ten Hag said over and over again, decision making. We got into decent positions, but it's decision making. And he's not wrong with that, because you look at how we're actually building up the play, particularly in the first half, but also in the second half too, that we're building up the play all right. We're getting into what would be deemed as dangerous positions, getting it out to the winger, one-on-one with your fullback, or just a couple of passes away from working the ball into the box. And poor decision making, that's what Rashford was doing. But then you turn, as Kenny said, you flip to the manager and go, well, it's also poor decision making on your part, because I feel like most managers worth their salt would look at Rashford at halftime and say, it's not working. It's not working. And also, you're not the Rashford of last season whereby, hey, he's having a stinker, but he can pull something out of nothing. Apart from that Arsenal goal this season, he hasn't done the pulled it out of nothing. And yesterday was a game where you could tell I'm against the side of a low block. I need to change something. I need to change personnel. I need something different. And now the questions have to be asked about the senior pros in the team, like your Rashfords, like your Brunos. Why, when you're coming back into the side, not forget the opposition and who they've got on the pitch, because I understand it was a better Palace side, but why, when you coming back into the side, are we as a team playing worse? Like, why is our style of play worse than it was just a few days ago? And I know you can talk about our opposition, but you could just tell the patterns of play just weren't there as much yesterday. And it was just, as the game went on, 10 minutes left, and they're going, the commentators are going, oh, can United find a winner? You're sitting there going, no, because we're not going to, and I look at, again, these other teams in the Premier League, when they go 1-0 down, you go, they'll come back. You spoke about Liverpool yesterday. Yes, they lost, but you go, I tell you what, they were almost better with 10 men for a while, and they were unlucky considering they were robbed by VAR and officials. And as you mentioned, Fleck, I look at the team yesterday and just go, this isn't, I don't know at this point, and maybe Cam, you can touch on this from the tactical point of view, how you turn this around at this point, because to me, it's almost like it's a work rate or an endeavor thing at this point. And I don't know. I just don't see it.
Cam, before you come in, just quickly, let me finish reading off these super chats. We was at Magnus says the Onana situation is mad. We spend 55 million on him and don't play to his style. Same with Højlund. What was the worth in these purchases? Yeah, we're hardly seeing Onana, with the build up. But it's like yesterday, he didn't have to do anything. The team had the ball. Like, we didn't have to break them down from Onana pinging it and stepping out into mid. It just wasn't that type of game. We wasn't being pressed. We had the ball. Onana was always. There's going to be games where Onana's sort of just doesn't need to be called upon, which I don't mind. That's for the 10 players in front of him to do what they need to do. We shouldn't need the keeper to help break down Palace.
No, there was a time in the game when Onana came to the halfway line and they passed the ball to him, and the fans all screamed,
they said shoot.
To shoot.
It said shoot. Yeah.
How desperate have we become?
That's how you know it's bad. Yeah, that's how you know it's bad. Keegan says Rashford to hold bench until he shows Garnacho type of hunger. Feels like Amrabat and Hannibal are the only ones fighting for the badge. We are proper shit at the moment. And David G says the thing about Rashford is he hasn't progressed as we expected. He's added goals, but his game is exactly the same as 2 years ago. His IQ hasn't improved. I agree with that. And Magnus says Bruno is not a playmaker, only a chance creator. He isn't great right now. Maddison and Odegaard are much more complete players and improve their team. And Kyle says, even with injuries, a good system should thrive without your best players. Our system thrived without Rashford and Bruno, our best players, apparently. And All Elite says he dropped CR7 and Maguire, but not Rashford. Conspiracy. And D Witness says Onana playing out from the back means fullbacks stay pretty deep. Subsequently, Rashford gets found out against two defenders with no overlap options.
He does have overlap options. He doesn't use them.
He just
most of the
doesn't
time.
use them. Yeah, exactly.
He's got several overlap options for fullback
and actually our
midfielder.
fullbacks are actually, I think our fullbacks, I would say, are actually quite high or inverted.
Yeah,
to be
they're at
honest.
the midfield.
It's actually goes to back three with Casemiro dropping in there and then the two centre half split.
It doesn't matter what overlap options
just
there
got
are.
three. Yeah, we got three
He
there.
ain't
Or
using
Amrabat
them.
now. He
won't
don't use him. So
No.
Akut says, I don't understand how we've regressed so badly from last year. Do you have some sort of explanation or thoughts around this, which is what we're discussing right now, Akut? And Choco, paid member for 13 months, says, this is why from the start I've been saying no excuses. At this point, there is no progress. At best, we'll stagnate. Sigh. This is rough. And Kyle says, Eric Ten Hag said players have credit, but it's not long enough. Then he says decision-making is a problem. 1+1. Rashford won't play next game. Interesting. I bet he will.
No.
You don't think he will?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
Let's bring in Cam. Cam, actually, can you put your camera down a little bit, or zoom in? Just got too much headroom up there. There you go. Or just come closer. There you go. What are you saying, Cam? Owen just asked you there. I'm sure people in the comments would like to know. Not just tactically. I know you talk tactically as well, but how do you see what's actually going on here? What's happening? What's going wrong?
Maybe I've been in a bit of a bubble the last 24 hours or so because I missed the game live. I did another game I was at. I watched it back today, and I've seen so much negativity on Twitter and various other places. I don't know. Maybe it's sort of my way of trying to keep an open mind when I watch it back to be more positive about it. I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of like unintentional response. But having actually watched it today, I really didn't think it was anywhere near as bad as people are making out. Obviously, the result's not great. Don't get me wrong. We shouldn't be dropping points at home against Palace. But if you play that same game 10 times, you take the outcome of all the chances away, you'd be pretty happy with it. And you'd expect that we'd win that 9 times out of 10. Like, we had a lot of good chances. We had that one that Holland had cleared off the line in the first half. There was some good headers from Mount and Højlund. You had the cross that got fizzed across the face that had 2 deflections on the line, somehow didn't go in. You had that ball, the penalty shout. The guys caught the ball in front of Rashford. And if you've got to think as well, even if that goes past him, Rashford's in behind there, that's probably a pretty good, well, not by the way he played, but usually you'd expect that's going to be probably a quite good chance. There was enough chances there. It's not like it's a terrible performance. I think tactically, in terms of the way Ten Hag's trying to play, I think the structure's there, which is good. What is really not good is the execution's terrible. And part of the reason we had this problem with the wingers in general is that Ten Hag's job as a manager is to put your players in situations where they can be successful. If his sort of thinking, and I don't think anybody here would probably disagree, but if you put Marcus Rashford in a situation where he's 1v1 or he's got a 2v1 in his favour with some support, if you do that 15 times a game and get the ball out there, you expect a goal contribution. That's part of the way Ten Hag set his team up. We got the ball out to Rashford a lot of times. Now, part of the problem is particularly Lindelof wasn't quick enough to move the ball out that side, which meant that other players were shifting across. But if you compare it to Man City, for example, their wingers receive the ball. If they're 1v1, they take the guy on, they create something. If they're not 1v1, as soon as there's another defender comes in the picture, they'll play it back at pace and move the ball somewhere else on the pitch to go and play forward. We don't do that. That's where the decision-making has been poor. And part of it is, yes, the players should do better, but I think it is also frustration because if you're Marcus Rashford, you not touch the ball for 10 minutes, you get the ball and maybe there's 2 defenders. You're thinking, right, if I give this back here to the fullback, I'm not touching it for another 5-10 minutes. It's I can see why he's making decisions to just try everything in stupid situations. Obviously, he shouldn't be doing it, and you expect more from him. But when the ball's being moved so slowly that there's no other choice, I can see why it's frustrating. But yeah, it's just execution's bad for me. But I think we are starting to see the structure there. And I think the best example of that is Mason Mount. It was absolutely fantastic yesterday. Knew exactly where he needed to be all the time. Ten Hag demands a lot from his 8. He demands them to go deep and collect the ball from the people behind them at times. Other times,
he did that a lot yesterday.
Yeah, he got on the half-turn, played forward, progressed play through sort of dribbling with the ball, through passing. He was wide, helping out Rashford at times. Other times, he was helping out in all sorts of other areas. He was brilliant out of possession as well. As soon as we lost the ball, our pressing for the first 30, 35 minutes was fantastic. Every time Palace won the ball back, we were straight on top of them, or we made a tactical foul, which we've been crying out for ages. So there are things that are getting better. And ultimately, they've just scored a ridiculous goal from a set piece that we've defended badly. It's not, I think, it's not.
I disagree, Cam. I disagree. I mean, you said if we play that game 10 times, we'd probably win 9. I think
we'd never score.
I think we'd lose 10 times. I mean, just
draw
because it's not. It's that wasn't a shock yesterday. That's my point. Is that wasn't a surprise in how we've seen United play this season, and just again towards the end of last season as well. We've seen that from United, which is a good 20 minutes, good deep. We were in the opening 20 minutes. You go, oh, maybe United might get a goal here, looking lively as you mentioned, Højlund off the line, etc. But then after they scored, 25 minutes in. Like Ten Hag said it in the press conference before the game, where he spoke about possession, saying against Burnley, what did we have, like 38, something like that, 38% possession. And they said, oh, he didn't have a lot of possession that game. And he went, well, you can control a game with and without the ball. So, for instance, against Palace in the week, you've got a lot of the ball. We were fully in control of that game. Against Burnley, we didn't have a lot of the ball, but didn't feel like Burnley were going to score. Yesterday, I felt the same. Yesterday, I felt like Palace, they were in control of the game. They had 22%. But they were very comfortable, really comfortable. They had their game plan, sit behind the ball, and it just. And again, I do look at, and this is not get rid of the manager or anything like that by any stretch of the imagination, but just some of the decisions, some of the substitutions. Again, Rashford coming off 77 minutes, whatever it was, towards the end of the game. You're bringing on Maguire and Donny. I mean, I'm not really sure what that was to achieve, really.
Tell you what that was trying to achieve. Maguire coming on was trying to solve the problem of the guys at the back not moving the ball with any pace to the guys in front. And Donny was trying to solve the problem of every time the ball got anywhere in the middle of the pitch for United, other than Mason Mount, there was not a single player there who was able to take the ball in the half turn and play forward. Every time he got the ball forward, it was down the right side with Dalla.
Cam, but why did he wait to the 85th minute to bring Donny on? We saw it from the first 10 minutes. So that's the point we're making. Why wait till the 85th minute to see what we could all see before half time? And I'll go back to what I said. I'll go back to before. Ericsson should have been in that middle, right? At some stage of the game. Marcel, why? Because they can control the football and pass, right? They can control the football and pass. They can move on the half turn, right? They have that vision to put a pass through. The players that we are all talking about, Rashford, right? You can't do it. Whether if it's blame his fullbacks, blame whatever, he cannot do it. And if he ain't do it, there are people there, and that's a coaching decision. Roy Hodgson coaching yesterday. They were so well organised. It was so predictable. Even fans who are not qualified coaches could see how United had set up and how Palace had set up, and it was simple. They never, ever looked as though they were stretched. Never. And they were more than happy. Let 3 or 4 players run forward on transition, but when you loot, right, they were still solid at the back, so we would never have beat them on the counter-attack because they were set up for that. It was outcoached. It was outcoached, and it was back to desperate measure at 85 minutes when the majority of people, you've said it yourself, could see that we had nobody in that midfield that could hold that ball and put a cut through. They could cut through. Højlund was on the shoulder of the last defender all game, and he kept turning and running and running and turning round and running, and never got a ball through.
He's feeding off scraps. He's feeding off scraps.
And that's coaching.
And also as well, I think also as well, and we can say, because I do appreciate the point of you go, well, in certain passages of the play, you know, as I mentioned, the build-up play, for instance, to Rashford, for all of those opportunities is better. Like the link-up play there is better. And the midfield doesn't feel like it's as overrun as it was maybe in the first couple of games. But eventually, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's the worst start to a Premier League season ever by Man United. You know what I mean? And I worry for Ten Hag because I think there may be someone like a Jadon Sancho now is probably thinking, right, I've got 2 options here because he's not come back in the side. It's not happening. He's probably thinking either I go in January, that might happen, or, and let's face it, there might be people in that United squad at the moment that are going, might outlast manager anyway. I might outlast him. You know, the way things are going at the moment. And to me, my worry is that there's just something not right in that dressing room. there's something not right at the moment. Like, it does feel like it's fractured, and it does feel like there's cliques and factions in there of, I don't like how he's treated this person. I don't like how he's treated that person, or, you know, and you almost feel like maybe when he does his press conferences or when he does his interviews, he maybe wants to say more, but he realizes actually these players are so fragile. I can't say more, because if I do, they're barely running anyway. Sometimes, I mean, before the Palace game in midweek, or was it before the Burnley game? I forget. When he said, "Why aren't they running?" and he went, "I don't know." You know, yesterday he was asked, "Oh, did they run?" He goes, "Yeah, they ran, but you know, decision making and stuff like that." And I don't know. Maybe it's me putting the tinfoil hat on firmly, but it just feels like there's something wrong. There's something wrong in there.
Magnus says, Narflex, Cam was saying that Onana will change the whole style of play. Higher line, vertically, opposition teams change their tactics due to Onana. So I think he's trying to say that you basically thought that Onana would have a way bigger say over the team, and we're not seeing it. Hakeem says, big problem with this team is we don't believe in our game plan when we go behind. Our attackers are not clinical, so no one believes we can come back. Officer of the Watches says, Gala fan here. Galatasaray fan here. Gala, I haven't heard of that team before. Get ready for another loss on Tuesday. And you know what? I'll quickly get on with the super chats, but I will say just quickly on the guy, you know, you look at it and you go, Wilfried Zaha probably chomping at the bit. You know, they got Lucas Torreira probably going to turn into prime. You know,
Icardi there as well.
Icardi up front. You know, they got, Davinson Sanchez at the back.
Yeah.
Davinson Sanchez probably turn into bloody prime Van Dijk or something, you know.
So far this season, 7 wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Scored 10, conceded 4.
There you go. Kenny's done his homework, like you said. Yeah, and Ndombele in there. So, listen, they got some tricky players in there. That's what I will say. Halim says, "Oh yeah." He says all these patterns need individual. Oh crap! Press the wrong button there. Whoops! Did I press the wrong button there? There you go. All these patterns need individual brilliance to execute in the final third. We keep blaming Rashford when he's trying to inject some intent into our play. Bit of a defense for Rashford there. Kyle says, with McTominay, Evans, Maguire, Bruno, Rashford, we struggled. With Mount, Amrabat, Varane, Bruno, Rashford, we struggled. With Mount, Amrabat, Varane, no Bruno, no Rashford, we had our best result and performance. And Hakeem says, not to steal Culture Cam's flow, but Bruno and Rashford are our only match winners. So Eric Ten Hag is inclined to keep them on when we need a win. If not them, then who? And Chris says Bruno ranks first, Casemiro 8th for number of passes, not finding a teammate. No other big six side has a player in the top 10. We are so careless with the ball. And that's what I saw a lot of yesterday. There was a period before Palace got that stupid free kick, and there was about 90 seconds of us just giving it back to Palace. I think Dallo, the ball was bouncing up or something, and he kicked it straight back to Ayew. Then Casemiro had one on the edge of the box. He kicked it straight out to someone else, and then they recycled it on the left-hand side or their right-hand side, Amrabat's left. Then I think it's Amrabat who makes a silly foul, isn't it, for the free kick, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
You know, and that it's things like that, and then they cross it, and then before you know it, 1-0 down. And that came directly from a period of carelessness. I actually thought for the first 15 minutes, who would have thought as well, by the way, watch this script, for the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or before the 17 minutes when they scored, whenever it was, can't remember, we were okay. I thought we was okay. I really did think we was okay, you know? And it's like people... Exactly. And I know these periods get forgotten about and are frustrating because we end up losing or the other end of the result. But that shows that like something is there. But it goes back to what this whole show was literally called. Mentality worries. Absolutely. How many times have I said, have you lot said, we can write the script of what will happen? I even had to ask Bruno face to face. I asked him against Bayern. I said, are we struggling here? Like, how difficult is it that we're not managing games emotionally? We score and then we concede. We think we scored and then we concede. It happens every time. We got close to scoring when Tariq Mitchell wasn't quite off the line, but was going in and he cleared it. We're on top.
Yeah.
We feel quite good. We feel good about ourselves. Then we just emotionally don't handle the situation properly, give silly balls away, give the opposition a stupid free kick, and then we're 1-0 down. And then as soon as that adversity happens, 1-0 down, oh, fucking hell. I knew it. Oh, here we go. Oh, God.
It wasn't torn.
Exactly. So
I thought Amrabat did well. I really thought he played well. Don't forget, he's on the left. It's pretty much left wing, and I think he had left back, and you could see that's not his natural position. And I thought when he was in the middle, he looked good. I thought Mount looked good. I thought Mount was full of energy.
Yeah.
But does he work in the same team as Bruno? Bruno had 12 crosses and only 2 landed. Only 2 went to our play from 12 crosses. And yes, he comes up with wonder passes. But there is times in a game when you have got to be able to find your man. Because otherwise you end up like you said.
You do, yeah. MUFC USA. I've just been quiet for 20 minutes, mate. It's a bit harsh.
I was going to say.
I think you've just joined, mate. I think if you rewind this video, right, I was politely waiting my turn, actually.
Yeah.
So put that in your pipe and smoke it, MUFC USA. I've literally not said anything for about 15, 20 minutes. Am I allowed to talk? Big up MUFC USA. Says, Flex, shut the heck up and let someone else speak. I literally haven't spoken I feel so attacked.
Yeah,
because they've lost the radical. That's all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hold that. I don't even know about that, but hold that. Yeah. Look at that. I don't know how many above par we was, but yeah, Europe. Mashed you up. I don't know how many over you was or how many under we was or whatever, but hold that, USA. Yeah. Where was I? I can't remember what I was saying. But so just the mentality thing, and then also, I will be honest. Like I said in my reaction, I said I'm not letting Ten Hag and the players off the hook. Like I'm calling it as I see it for both. And like you said there earlier on, Kenny, like how he can leave him on. Do you know what I think with Rashford? I'll be honest. I think Ten Hag. I think he knows that this personality. I think he knows if he loses Rashford, I think he knows he's lost him. So what I mean by that is, and this isn't good managing, by the way, because I don't agree with this. This is me thinking what I think's going on. So he's shown that he's not scared of, some of the personalities. We saw what happened with Ronaldo. We saw what happened with Maguire. We saw what happened with De Gea. And I think with this one, with Rashford getting 30 goals as he did last year.
The shaking the Reds, them too. The shaking.
No, because you just said the word De Gea and Cam started smiling, and I thought Cam is ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
he mentions De Gea and he got the biggest shit-eating grin.
Well, I'll tell you what, Cam, De Gea's flipping on the 4G AstroTurf in his Miami Heat jersey, laughing his head off, mate, because we've been worse since he's left. But yeah, anyway, it's nothing to do with the keepers, but anyway, I think Ten Hag's gone. Well, he's got this big new contract, and if I start leaving him out or taking him off at like half time or like 5 minutes into the second half, I think Ten Hag's scared of that, because let's face it, Ten Hag did take him off at like the 77th minute or whatever it was, and I turned to the guy next to me and I said, even that's quite a damning indictment. Rashford's our poster boy. He's on a brand new contract. We're 1-0 down. He's usually our most likely to score, if we're being honest, and he's coming off the pitch. If you're that guy, you don't come off. So that is Ten Hag saying, I do know you're not playing good, but if I do it too early and there's a big reaction and me and you have some friction, plus I've just lost Jaden, plus Anthony's only just coming back in and stuff like that, I think he's scared to completely rock that boat. Because let's face it, let's be honest, we all saw it. We can all see what's happening, how poor Rashford's playing. If anyone else was playing like that, apart from Rashford or Bruno, they're getting hooked. Even Casemiro got hooked the other week against, was it Brighton, quite early, because he went, bloody hell, he can't run. So I think Ten Hag needs to grow a pair with this particular situation and say, listen, standards are standards. The same way you was late by 40 minutes, you now not played good for 40 games. So
I think you have to draw a comparison with Jurgen Klopp and Mo Salah. You have to do. Because Mo Salah is a far better footballer than Rashford. I don't care what anybody says. His record proves it.
Absolutely.
But when he's not playing well, he's off. He's off, and he can throw all the tantrums.
And he throws the tantrums.
He can do what he wants.
But he responds.
He
responds. Next
exactly.
game again, he's getting an assist or he's working his ass off.
Darwin Núñez is another one. Darwin Núñez, they pay £80 million or whatever. He can't get a game. It brings him on. He scores 2 goals. He doesn't start the game after. So there's obviously issues there as well. But they're managed. They are managed. And they're managed to the benefit of the football club. Not to the individual. Not to the individual. You know, we all thought Salah may go to Saudi or whatever and so on. No, he loves it. But he respects the fact that if he ain't playing well, then he has the right, the manager has the right to week him off. Now, do we have that situation where, as you've said, Rashford's in a situation where he's mentally vulnerable, where Ten Hag thinks, if I take him off here, this lad will go worse.
He does.
So
I think he thinks that.
So he's playing him through it. He wants him to play through it, and hopefully that he has a good game, and all of a sudden the world's a better place. But that's, well, doesn't always work that way.
We'll go back to Cam and then over to you, Marcel.
Yeah. Do you think do you really think it's just between Ten Hag and Rashford, or do you think that once again the people at the top of United have decided they want to go for the commercial option and make sure that their best asset is playing every single week, regardless of what he does? Because I wouldn't be surprised. I think at Liverpool now, Jurgen Klopp's done so much for that football club that basically anything he says goes, and everyone will trust him. I don't think any manager at Manchester United at this point, bar Sir Alex Ferguson, could go and tell the Glazers to do something. If they want a particular player to stay at the club when the manager wants him out, they get their way. If they want a particular asset playing on the pitch, I would imagine they also get their way with that. So I think, there's probably a bit of an issue in terms of not wanting to have issues with the dressing room, but I think there's probably something coming from above as well, with some of that sort of stuff as well. So, I think there's probably more going on than meets the eye, because there's no reason for Ten Hag, with everything we know about him, to.
But he does have the power in game, Cam, to say get off.
Yeah, and
he's got the power to do that, and he's got the power to say you ain't starting.
Yeah, and also as well, people point out, like, you know, if they were really worried, you know, United about commercial point of view, when the whole Ronaldo stuff initially was first happening, forget Ronaldo going out on TV and doing the interview with Piers Morgan, they'd have been outright. This is Cristiano Ronaldo. He's the largest commercial mover we've got. I think it's just a case of like what Flex is saying, where he's like, one, if I take him off, he's not playing well anyway, and maybe we just won't get him back to where he was last season. And I do think there's like I said before, I think Rashford's a popular guy within Man United in the dressing room. People like Marcus Rashford. And I think it's the same with like Jadon Sancho. There is no way with that situation, even though that I think Erik ten Hag's perfectly in the right. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that Erik ten Hag's perfectly in the right, that there's not people that are like Sancho's friend or whatever going, oh, I can't believe he's treating Jadon like that. Jadon's a good guy. You know, even if he is late or whatever, he should be managing. Or the perception, well, yeah, he does have favourites. Jadon's right. And then trying to manage that too. And I think you're right in the sense of, you know, about the, you know, Klopp and Pep, for an example, at City, he takes Bernardo Silva off, one of the best players, after like 43 minutes. Get off, mate, you're playing shit. You know, he doesn't care. I don't know if Ten Hag has that cachet at the moment at United, but, and maybe also he turns to his bench. Maybe he turns to his bench going, who do I bring on? You know, I bring on Garnacho, but it's kind of hit and miss from the start, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it as well. But I think at this point with Rashford, it's just like, as Kenny was saying earlier, I think, even though I don't think this will happen, if I don't think Rashford should start against Galatasaray, he will, by the way. He will start against Galatasaray, but I don't think he should, because it's just a case of, we've seen trying to play him through it. Maybe now take him out. Maybe now take him out of the. That's why I wanted him. I mentioned about Palace on Tuesday. That's why I wanted him to be involved in that game, because he'd had a more chance of scoring in that game and maybe build up some confidence then. But now I'll go back to the team that was playing against Palace on Tuesday, and I'm going like Hannibal, Garnacho, get him on, start him. We need people that are running around at this point.
Marcel, what are you saying about this whole Rashford situation and how Ten Hag should deal with it?
Well, I'm worried that it gets to a point where we have to start considering, is he even good enough for the club, full stop? You know, he's not doing enough in the defensive transitions, and then 1v1 and his finishing actions and all these kind of things are just not there. They're none of void at the moment. So I'm not really not really excited, going forward to see him play right now. He looks like 2 years ago when he was just really depressed. It was something beyond football, the kind of performances that I was seeing him from, head down, sulking. It feels a bit like this again, where you're just not applying yourself at all. So I'm not, I'm not, I'm not gonna cause the witch hunt on him now, but I'm thinking, around January, around the end of next season, the start of next season, I'm looking, is he good enough? Is he somebody that we should really be keeping at this club? How do we still get the best out of him? Does someone like Marcel maybe need to go on the left side for a bit to see if he can maybe try and force an issue? Those 1v1s that Rashford had that we've all alluded to yesterday, Martial could have maybe done something better. Just, nobody on the left wing is doing the defensive work. Garnacho's doing it, but you could have maybe left Martial to just work on the forward line and try and attack and show his dribbling ability. Rashford's not even doing that. So, we've got a massive issue with Rashi, but I think, after next season or the season after that, we've got to start looking, and even Bruno, even Cass, for me, I think Cass is one that's really looking like an issue. And the reason why I say that and jump to that so quickly is because last season, that Ten Hag stabilized the football club. Again, Owen pointed it out. He wasn't playing brilliantly the second half of the season. We was just kind of getting through games with the results. And that's because the players were suitable for the 4-2-3-1 structure. And a lot of people were saying we're playing volleyball last season as well, with a few patterns of play here and there in areas. So again, Ten Hag done the right thing. He tried to, at the beginning of the season, show them maybe the build up and go with the 3-1-6 structure last season, but he was forced to stabilize. The players mentally weren't strong enough, and they don't have the technical ability to do what he wants them to do. He's now gone into, when does he, so you want him to do another season of stabilizing? This season he had to go and try and try and implement his paintbrush on the team, and injuries have come in the way and all these other predicaments. But with Rashi, unfortunately, he's in that crop of players. Casemiro, Maguire should be gone ages ago. Rashi, maybe even Bruno, or those type of players. Can they play against the mid block and the low block? Because that's what we're suffering against right now. We can't break down mid blocks and low blocks. So can the next group of players that Ten Hag gets in, or that he's trying to progress and develop, because we've seen him progress and develop players like last season, can they break down mid blocks and low blocks? And are they good at defensive transitions? Because that's something that we're suffering with as well against Wolves at home, against Nottingham Forest at home. We need players that are focusing on defending as well, going backwards. So I think Rashi's got his time's looking very thin.
I think it's a really good point he makes points out there, because this was something that was brought up yesterday during the full-time view. And it's that if you look at last season and Erik ten Hag, how he started those first two games, wanted to play his Ajax way of playing, quickly realized, if I do that, I'm out of a job by Christmas. Right, what are these players used to, which is the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, more on transition, more counter-attacking play. What's the best style of play for the players that I've got? So he adapted. He went, I've got to compromise how I'm going to play. And I think you're right. I think this season he went, right, I did that for a season. I achieved probably more than I thought I was going to. Third place, Carabao Cup, cool. This season, I'm going to get more of my own players in. I'm going to play my style of football. And now we're starting to see maybe the tactically, how inflexible some of these players are, in that actually, you do question about like a Rashford or maybe a Bruno. Can they actually adapt their game to fit into how Ten Hag wants Man United to play? I think that's the part of it. Last season was perfect for Marcus Rashford because we had a whole season without a striker. We don't have a striker. So Rashford, it's upon you. Can you create and score goals for us? You're our primary threat down the left-hand side. This season, it's like, right, we've got a striker. We've got, obviously, Martial back more available too. So you're going to have to be more of a traditional winger in terms of it's not just 30 goals. It's also creating, getting the ball in the box, getting the ball across for the striker. Can you do that? And maybe it's just a case of that's not the kind of player he is. And therefore, does he actually fit? Can he actually adapt? It's kind of the same with Bruno. When was Bruno's sort of best season at United? When essentially he was a 10, but he's playing as a striker, really, getting like 20 goals, whatever. He's the sort of focal point. You're saying with Bruno, can you be a bit more, like we were saying before, a bit more of a playmaker as opposed to getting goals, being on the end of everything? Maybe not. And that's not to say they're bad or whatever. That's to say that Ten Hag has a decision to make of either do I take them out of the team and play how I want the team to play in my mind, or do I change the way that I'm going to play to fit them into the team and get the best out of them? And I think that's kind of the dilemma.
That's where the identity crisis comes in. Exactly. Where of like, where is this going to go? All Elite says open heart surgery takes time. He is gutting out this team. There are players we ain't even talked about that need to go. Dallo, Wan-Bissaka, sure, not good enough. I mean, sure, hasn't even barely kicked a game, kicked the ball this year. But, all elite saying no, not good enough. Chris says Rashford has 17 blocked shots this season, the most by far of any in the Prem. That shows he's shooting when he shouldn't. He needs to play the extra pass. I mean, even if you didn't check the stats, how many times have we seen that Rashford cutting in from the left, feint to shoot, feint to shoot, feint to shoot, and then still force it, and then it gets blocked. Again, it's the decision making, isn't it? Just before you carry on, Kenny. Sorry, 1 second, Kenny. Just before you go in, Mike says, Marcel, you're right. He has never been good enough. Never. What conversation are we having? This is wild. Random goals does not make you a team baller. What are you going to say, Kenny?
Well, we've already stated the fact that has got credit in our bank. As fans, he's got credit in our bank. I think he looks at his team and he says, Bruno, you've got the best stats in Europe for assists and goals. And the Premier League, by the way, better than De Bruyne's. Rashford, you got me 30, 40 goals last season. They've still got credit in his bank. So that's what's saving them. It's not the current form, it's the credit in the bank. But it's at what stage does that credit run out? And it's sort of like the fans, at some stage in the very near future, if we don't start winning games, that credit in our bank for Ten Hag will go. And it'll be exactly the same for them players with Ten Hag. We've already seen players like McTominay, Maguire, they've gone. They've not even, it doesn't matter. They've just gone. They're not in there. They will only play when he's absolutely desperate.
Yeah, no, it's true. That is the fact that he is trying to move on from those players. K Flo says the frustration is showing at Old Trafford. I fear for Eric Ten Hag. 2 more losses in December will come quickly. We all know what the Glazers are like. These players are 1 game away from down in tools. And there's a super chat from Vince. Vince says, Flex, when are you and KG playing EA Sports FC 24? I don't know, actually, yet. We have got it all sorted out and loaded up in the studio. When KG gets back, we have to, because I think with Champions League and stuff like that, we might have to move it from a Tuesday to a different day. But yes, we will let you guys know ASAP, because I know you guys want to see that. If anything, I want to get out of reality, maybe get into that. Well, actually, no, we get sacked. So probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, last time didn't go particularly great.
No, it didn't. And Hakeem says, can Bruno create for our striker, please? Even Rashford has created more chances for Højlund. Also, Højlund has to do more. If it was Martial, I would call him lazy. I think that's a bit harsh. I think Højlund is making good runs. I think he is active, but I'm hardly seeing him have a touch, to be honest. When he does get a touch, he usually holds off his man, brings it down quite nicely, and just gives it to the winger or sets it back to the midfielder, and you sod off back into the box. Like, I like that, just a straight up 9. He's showing that he can have a little bit of hold up play like Martial can have, but also he's not afraid to go and press, and he will make runs in behind. I mean, look at the ball that Marcus Rashford did play to him, where I think he pushes off Mark Gay with good strength.
Yeah.
It gets a toe to it and it doesn't quite go in. If he scores that, we're saying that's a number 9. That's exactly what we need. Running in behind, strength on a defender to brush him off onto the floor and tuck it past the keeper. Would have been a really good striker's goal. The header that he had as well, near post, probably should have done better with that as well. But other than that, all it was him sort of gathering it, might have won a foul here or there, or get on the half turn, pass it out to the winger, usually Rashford, and just sprint into the box. That was it. We're not really seeing him get involved a lot. So, that is partially, we need to play to his strengths. He needs to get acquainted to the Premier League. And this is what we said as well. We said, when we were starting poorly before Højlund was even fit, we was like, all we need now to top this off is the young kid comes in and he's awful, can't get a kick. We spent 64 million quid and then all the hounds are out. And it hasn't quite been like that, because we've seen something there. Scored against Bayern Munich, disallowed goal against Brighton, a couple of close chances. So it's not like, oh my God, this guy's a dud. But we're not playing to his strengths. I'm not seeing enough of him. And my biggest concern right now, actually, which I know Owen shares as well, we're talking about it, we ain't got any goals in the team, guys. Who's going to score? Where are our goals coming from? Marcus Rashford, if you don't get the moments from him, he's null and void. Null and void. May as well not be there. Højlund, not getting fed like I just spoke about. The right-hand side, I mean, let's be honest, we wanted Pellistri to start because of how shit it's been on the right-hand side. And it's like, just give him a chance. But let's just be honest with ourselves. He's honest. He's hardworking, but he's not the level. It's not the level. He's not there yet. Let's just, it's not being rude to him. It's not. Exactly.
You've answered your own.
He's not there. So he's not going to score or he's not going to assist. Bruno, again, we just spoke about the playing style. Dropping deep, trying to make things happen. It ain't happening. Who's going to score?
Your own question about, we're all livid about why they did not took Rashford off unless what we just said. Ten Hag who's going to score? His only chance is either Bruno or Rashford. And then that's the fact. That is
or Garnacho, like trying to do a little flashpoint
exactly.
cut in or something. Yeah.
So we're asking our own question.
I guess
that's why he's playing. That's why he's playing.
I guess then I'm going to ask a question then. Because we haven't got the goals now, would you guys prefer to start a team? Because I think this is actually quite a good team, going forward, of maybe Ahmad, Hannibal, Mount, Højlund, and Garnacho, suffering with them for the next, 10 or 20 games, just so that they can implement the style of play. Because right now, we're obviously not seeing the style of play being implemented by Rashford and Bruno. To the way that obviously Ten Hag wants it to. And you can obviously see that from the 2 Crystal Palace games, 4 days apart. The younger players obviously being more adaptable to the style. So would you rather have the younger players? Hannibal is a decent player.
Hannibal's got to play. I think it's got to be Hannibal, Mount, Casemiro, and I'd just stick Bruno out on the right.
Well, I would, yeah. Or I would hopefully.
Anthony's back now. To be fair, Anthony's back now.
Yeah.
So. And he's going to listen. Ten Hag's going to get him straight back in. By the way,
Casemiro has been shit as well. Can we just call that out?
What you say that though? You say that though, Cam?
He's our top scorer.
He's a top scorer. He's a top goal scorer.
yeah.
I just told you
his
how
goals
bad
away, mate. Would be 17th.
Yeah, he's the one scoring.
It's a fair point, but at the same time, he's not doing the job he's in the team to do. The reason he's so far up the pitch is because when he's sitting deep, we can't play the ball forward because he's in the way and slows everything down. His only good game this season is against Palace on Tuesday night when they had absolutely no desire to get with anyone within 10 yards.
Yeah, they were crap. They were awful.
Do you remember what Mourinho said about Rooney dropping deep? Like, my pass is great too when I've got all the time.
Yeah, space and time, yeah.
Yeah, look, you give a professional footballer space and time. I expect you to be able to hit a 40-yard switch and it goes to the player you're expecting it to. He's been absolutely atrocious. I've been digging out some stats earlier on Casemiro, and interceptions, tackles, everything is so far below what he was doing last season. He's getting dribble past far more than he was before. His success rate in the duel is so much worse than it was last season. And even last season,
22% or something, isn't it? It's like something like
that.
that.
Depending on where you take it from, I think some people are saying it's like a massive drop. Other places are saying a little bit less, but it's still nowhere near what he was doing last year. And at times last season, we were saying he's crap on the ball, but we can get away with it because he brings us so much out of possession. He wins it back quickly, stops us conceding, does all this sort of stuff. If he stopped doing that side of things, what does he give us? I think the only reason he's still playing at this moment in time is because Sergio Reguilón's injured. If Reguilón wasn't injured, it would be Amrabat taking Casemiro's spot, and that would make us so much better because Amrabat can at least sort of take care of the ball.
Do you know what I've learned about Amrabat though? And I know it's really early. I like him, and I'm
loves picking up the ball with his hands. He did it like 5 times yesterday.
That was ridiculous. That was pathetic. Obviously, we know, again, that's what I mean. One thing is playing left back against bloody Raksaki, a young kid at Palace who don't play. Do you know what I mean? And Jordan Ayew is not exactly the best winger in the league, is he? But as soon as he played against an
Lindelof got rinsed, though. Just as bad. That whole left side was tragic.
The whole left side, yeah. But he's not... We need to be careful that we don't misprofile Amrabat. He's not quick. Like, he can't get about the pitch like Fred. Let's not dress up what... He can't. I saw Eze... sort of put a bit of sprint on. He was running through treacle. He couldn't catch up. And I know Eze's quick, but Amrabat's not that like mobile and shut off all the spaces and do what Fred does. He's combative in a tackle, like a fierce tackle. He's up for it. It'll make a 50-50 beat in his favor, and he wants to come and collect the ball and keep the ball moving very quickly. Some good switches of play. He can be very useful for what we want to do for the next stage of playing, but we still can't have him and say like, Amrabat can go close that down. Like he's not going to be any quicker than Casemiro and going to close down massive spaces. Like he's not. I seen the shift. You know, like when you look at the eye test and the leg speed up in person close. Like even from the World Cup, I didn't think like I know we've done that sprint. Like that was like a head back, just me and you. Then we just close my eyes and sprint thing with Mbappe. That was just a one-off. But in terms of like, you know, going all around the pitch and like doing a Kante, like he can get about everywhere. He ain't that.
That's why I was saying Hannibal. That's why on the Friday on the morning view, I was saying Hannibal, and it wasn't just like, oh, you're over gassing youngsters. Hannibal's like, if you want to look at it just from a stats point of view, the stats he was putting on the board. I know there were 2 games, but like against Burnley and against Palace, but particularly against Burnley, they were some of the best ones. Not only of like best United ones, they were some of the best in the league. They were some of the best since Ten Hag has arrived at the club.
Yeah,
in terms of
6
distance.
years.
Yeah, in terms of distance covered, presses, you know, again, covering the pitch, all this kind of stuff. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Casemiro had arguably his best game when he's got someone like Amrabat, Hannibal, and Mount, who's actually going to cover that distance that he cannot cover anymore. So that's why I was surprised, but I guess I wasn't surprised. But yesterday, when I saw Hannibal was at the start, I went, he's really unfortunate. And actually, it's going to hurt more than United think it will, because he covers that distance that either people don't want to cover or they can't cover. And yeah, maybe he's not the most technically proficient player, but when we're talking about a time where there's gaps and, you know, a lack of quality, it can be brought up a little bit with a bit of, you know, distance covered. And I think he's won against Galatasaray. For me, he has to start. He has to, because he sets the pace. He sets. It's infectious as well. Other people, they go, that guy's running his ass off. He did it against Burnley too. And that guy's running around. Let's follow it.
Galatasaray will be on us as well. Like you look at some of the players that they've got. Just a few, because obviously we know a few of the names as well. You just know, someone like Lucas Torreira, just running around like a little pit bull, and everyone in midfield. You know what I mean? Zaha's going to have the bit between his teeth. Champions League. You know what I mean? Coming back to Old Trafford. I know he's been back loads of times before with Palace, but it's different. It's Champions League under the lights. You know what I mean? Icardi, I know he's had his problems at PSG and all of that stuff, but you know he's still a decent player. You know they can, and he's handy as well on the right wing. He's quick, he's good. So, mate, it's not going to be an easy game. Just these super chats before we wrap up. It's just Danny says, if you could sell Rashford for 120 million in the summer to PSG and guaranteed it's reinvested for Eric Ten Hag, would you do it? Cam shake nodding his head.
I told you all this 2 years ago. In fairness,
yeah, you have. Yeah. Marcel's hiding, but basically we know what his answer is. Owen, would you take 120 million for Rashford?
Well, the problem is with the Man United recruitment department is, what is that 120 million going towards? Because it'll probably end up going towards a player that's already injured, out of action for 6 months or something like that, or a new Maguire contract.
Third choice.
Like that.
Third choice.
Bringing back De Gea and Phil Jones, both of them free agents.
Would you take it though?
120 million for Rashford. 120 million. That's overvalued. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Kenny, would you take that?
Rashford will come good. Rashford will come good.
Okay. Kenny's last words there. Joseph says, no matter what we say about tactics, etc., desire, heart, and work ethic is missing. Eric Ten Hag isn't covering himself in glory with dodgy tactics and game plans. And Kate Flo says, another thing we all forget is the amateur supporting cast, coaching, and medical staff. This is elite football, and we have Huddlestone and co. all hanging about. Even set pieces, goals are all by chance. Huddlestone's doing the youth team. I mean, he's not.
Team, yeah.
I know you can say, well, our youth team ain't good enough to this, but come on, I wouldn't say that. But if you're saying Mitchell van der Haag and
Huddleston getting a random straight.
I know. What straight. Officers of the Watch says Galatasaray right back S. Bowie has 90% tackle win stats. Rashford ? So there you go. So the Galatasaray fan is saying, listen, be ready, giving us the player stats and saying they are absolutely ready. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow, I'll give you something a little bit different tomorrow morning, actually. I'm going to be on my way to Carrington with Josh. Yes, we're going to be doing the press conference and the open training session. So I'll be bringing you the latest team news to see how the boys are shaping up for the game against Galatasaray and hopefully get a question to put to Ten Hag. Actually, in the comments on the way out, quickly get your potential questions in. We did it last time of questions you'd like me to ask. Obviously, don't be silly. I don't want to get kicked out and never come back again. But at the same time,
you resign.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, constructively, at the same time, you know, I'm not just there to ask the easy question because we're fans. Like I've asked questions when it's been tough and tried to get the morale going as a fan. But absolutely, as fans as well, we want to know other stuff. So let me know on the way out. So yeah, tomorrow morning it'll be a bit different. It won't be a live morning show, but there will be a video at 9 a.m. from myself on the way up, covering the latest news as well from the road trip ish, bit of a road trip extra. So join me at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and press conferences tomorrow as well. Owen will be covering that live, and also the preview for the game as well. I'll do that probably from Carrington. So loads to get your teeth in tomorrow. Teeth into for another big week ahead. You know, watch Brentford today. Just to have a look at them. You know, they're not playing amazingly good, but neither were Palace before they rocked up at Old Trafford. It doesn't matter, does it? Anyway, guys, see you all tomorrow. Smash the like on this video. How much did we get? 278. We had over 330. If you can smash the like on the way out, that will be much appreciated as well. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Take care, guys. Peace.